I'm joined now by Leonard Blazeby. He's the head of the Australian office of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Leonard Blazeby, what's the significance of the International Red Cross declaring that this is a civil war in Syria?
The significance of this for the ICRC and also for the people in Syria is that this actually provides a set of rules that the people who are engaging in the conflict can actually adhere to. It comes from the Geneva Conventions of 1949, quite a long time ago, but it allows the people who are fighting to be able to have a framework where they know basically what they are and are not allowed to do when they're fighting the conflict.
Before we talk about the ramifications of a declaration like this, what does it actually take for a declaration like this to be made? Because some could argue the fighting, the violence in Syria has been going on for well more than a year now.
That's right. Well, this is a qualification that the International Committee of the Red Cross has made, and we've made that after careful examination of the situation on the ground. What we do is we look at the intensity of the fighting, of the hostilities which are taking place, and we look at the level of organisation of the parties to the conflict. And if we are able to see that that has met what we would see as the standard, the threshold as it's called legally, for a non-international armed conflict or a civil war in layman's terms, then we make something as we did this qualification of the conflict.
So what are the ramifications for the people who are fighting on both sides of this conflict now that the ICRC has declared that it is a civil war and therefore those Geneva Conventions are invoked?
Yes, well, what it does is it makes the people aware, the people who are fighting, aware of the fact that there needs to be a distinction between military objectives and civilians, between the people who are actually fighting and the people who just happen to be living in an area where the fighting takes place, to respect healthcare workers and the fact that people are allowed and deserve to have medical treatment, and that the people providing that medical treatment should not be attacked. It talks about those people who are detained, making sure that they are treated humanely, as well as those who are in the hands of the enemy.
Couldn't it be argued, though, that in a civil war, people on either side are not always attuned to abiding by the rules because they are fighting a war?
Well, that's true. However, it's been over centuries that people who have been fighting in conflict have been have needed to follow certain rules.
Any evidence that it's a deterrent, though, to that conflict?
Yes, I think there is. The fact that we maintain the rules, the fact that we see that the rules are still applicable, I think shows the fact that we have seen that during an armed conflict, the framework of it and the fact that we now know that it's an armed conflict enables those to really understand what their obligations are.
Explain a little bit about the activities of the International Red Cross on the ground in Syria, because some organisations, of course, are finding it very difficult to operate there. What is the ICRC able to do?
Well, I think the situation in Syria does make access quite difficult. It has also made access for both the International Committee of the Red Cross and also the Syrian Arab Red Crescent, who we work with quite closely, have difficulties in accessing certain areas. But there are three main areas that we're working on. One is the provision of medical assistance. We've provided mobile medical units as well as a lot of medicines and things, which are often those which are difficult to get in situations like what we have in Syria. We also are trying to ensure that people who are able to provide medical assistance are in the right place at the right time. Outside of that, we are looking at things like the provision of food. We've distributed over 13,000 food parcels in the area of Homs. And also, of course, this sort of thing leads to many people being displaced, and we're ensuring that they are able to get both food and drinking water, which is really crucial.